This morning I'm going to start in a very unusual place as we look at this topic of evangelism, and that's by asking you to think for a moment with me about the value of water. Water is a substance that completely changes an ecosystem forever. We know that. When there's clean flowing water and it enters into an area, that immediate area is improved. Everything about that environment changes. Have you ever heard of the Great Green Wall? Well, you probably haven't, and honestly, I hadn't either until this week. This is an initiative that many countries around the world are working on together to prevent and reverse the growth of the Sahara from invading and expanding to more countries and regions throughout Africa. The way they do this is that they are working to divert water and move just a small bit of it onto this dry and broken desert land. The results of this effort has been breathtaking. There are entire areas that once were completely devoid of life and now are dense and beautiful countryside, grasslands and woodlands. Areas that were uninhabitable are now vibrant farms. Seemingly overnight, these areas are being completely reshaped, completely changed, overhauled, and beautified, all because of a small amount of running water. This water breathes almost literally life into the parched ground and transforms the landscape from a dry and dusty step up into a vibrant place of life. This is exactly the kind of thing that Jesus is trying to pin his conversation on with the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman. In John chapter 4, Jesus finds himself at a very important place. He's at Jacob's well. We have to go all the way back to Genesis 33 and verses 18 through 20. Jacob, after contending with God, finally received the blessings that God promised him in the form of a portion of land near Mount Gerizim. Now, this land was dry and dusty. It was really valueless, and there was very little good to it until they found a deep spring of living or running water, and it was discovered. After tapping into this, Jacob was able to build a home and a very effective farm. This spot that Jesus was at was a visible representation of the blessings of God in the form of what water does. And it is for this reason, and with this in mind, that Jesus talked to the Samaritan woman about this living water. Let's listen in on their conversation and see what it can teach us about how to evangelize. We're in John chapter 4, verses 7 through 15. A Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus approached her and said, "Can I have a drink of water?" The Samaritan woman responded to him, "How dare you, a Jew, come near me and beg me, a Samaritan, a woman, for something?" Jesus responded, "If only you'd known the gift of God and who it is saying, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you the living water." "But you have no bucket," retorted the woman. "That well is deep. Where are you going to get this living water? Surely you're not better than all of the father of all of us, Jacob himself. Jacob who gave us this well, and Jacob who drank of it himself, he with his sons and his livestock." But Jesus replied, "Everyone who is drinking of this water will be thirsty again. But those who drink the water I'll give them will be free, forever free of thirst. Far from it. The water I'll give them will become a spring of water welling up to life lasting forever." "Sir," the woman said, "please give me this water so I don't have to feel thirst or come back to this place." Just as running water transformed this holy mountain from a desert to a vibrant place of life in the days of Jacob, Jesus is saying that he can have the same effect on us. Notice how the tone of the woman changed. She realized that he was tapping into a source of life that she desperately needed. He had something she was looking for, maybe even didn't totally realize it herself. But, by the way, isn't that why we are here as well? The crucial part of this is that we are not just the Samaritan woman, the ground being brought to life by the living waters, and we are. But we are the continuation of Jesus' ministry. We are those bringing the water to the earth. You could be that tiny stream that brings life out of the barren, desolate desert. In many ways, that is the role of evangelism. And that's the way that we are to accomplish it. The flip side of this is we cannot be a river of living water to a thirsty and dry world if those waters are not first and foremost living within us. In nature, if a running stream of water is stopped up and made to stop receiving fresh water from the spring and keep flowing on downstream, it becomes sedimentary. And this transforms not only the pool of water, but the environment around it. And it does so in a very bad way. The water stagnates. It becomes contaminated with bacteria and parasites, and literally just within the course of a couple of days, water stagnation can lead to a substantial decline, even death, of the environment around it. So daily we are either bringing living waters of life, or we're suffering a stagnation and a continuation of death. So what's the difference between the two? It's based on this: whether we are flowing out or standing still. That's our word for today, flow, F-L-O-W. Jesus called himself living water, and this phrase literally means moving or running water. That's why the woman believed that he was referencing the spring underground. We are to be living water. It's necessary that we are alive and moving, and to do that we have to flow. F-L-O-W, freely living out words. These 4 ideas will be helpful to us as we explore what it means to live a life of evangelism. The first is F, freely. The first step to unlock our flow of evangelism is to freely move. But what does it mean to be free? If we're going to live a life of evangelism, we must first find for ourselves the freedom that we're promising to the world, this true biblical freedom. We read, "For freedom's sake, King Jesus made us free, so resolutely refuse to be chained into slavery." Once again, Galatians 5:1. Also this, "So if God's Son set you free, then free you shall be." John 8:36. Guys, the truth is that we have been set free. Listen to this verse. "For the law of this life-giving Spirit in King Jesus has set you free from the rituals of sin and death." Romans 8:2. We have to live as if it is true that we have been truly freed from the rituals of sin and death. That's what this world needs to see. That's what this world wants to see. It's what it's hungry for. What exactly do I mean free from the rituals or the law of sin and death? Well, in part, it means that our lives are noticeably different despite the circumstances around us. You know, the reality is the mar of sin upon our earth, it results in so much darkness. Is it true that our lives are noticeably free from that? Sadly, the world does not see Christians as living lives free from the rituals of sin and death. Let's be honest, and you and I know that's true. They look at us and they say, "You Christians are as sad and depressed and reactionary and uncertain and fearful as all the rest of us." And this frankly should not be. We may not be free from the effects of sin and death. We still experience heartbreak. We still have illness and financial downturn. But that's not what the verse says. It doesn't say that we are free from the fact that sin and death are here and they impact the world. It says we're free to respond to these things differently. And this difference is freedom. Yes, I face trouble, but in Christ I am free to respond to it in confidence and hope and assurance and joy. This is a freedom from the ritual or the law of sin and death, which wants to rule our lives the way it rules our world. So let me ask you, are you really living free? And if not, what's chaining you up? L, living. At the risk of sounding like a philosophy student in college, let me ask you, what does it mean to really be alive? See, this is a deceptively tough question. We all have life, but not all of us are really alive. To turn a phrase on our friend William Wallace, all men are living, but not all men are really alive. So let Jesus explain it to us. In John 10:10, Jesus juxtaposes these 2 ways of experiencing life. He tells us that the thief, Satan, comes to bring a form of life, and that he, Jesus, comes to bring a different form of life. The thief brings a life that he might steal and kill and ruin. That's what he's about. And Jesus comes to bring a life that is overflowing and abundant. If we're to evangelize this living water, to demonstrate it and its power to others, we have to not only live free, but we have to live to be really alive. Satan wants us to have an existence that's on the decline, that's grinding down, that's inexorably focused on an inordinately dismal demise at the end. And Jesus instead brings a life now that is everlasting. So look at your life and look at the people the way that people view your life? Would you say that it reflects a life of Satan or a life of the Savior? Do you demonstrate a life that is manifesting and continuing to manifest a growth, or a life that is diminishing and dying? The world around us, they're witnessing in us a life that is truly alive. If they are, they will see the difference of Jesus in us, and this is a key to evangelism. This whole series, we've been trying to reiterate that this imperial proclamation, this gospel, this good news of King Jesus is here to bring people life now and everlasting. But how can we do this if we really aren't living ourselves? Next, this is our directional topic for the topic, out. How we worship is up, discipleship is in, evangelism is reaching out to the world around us with a message that Jesus wants a life-changing relationship with them. This idea is very important as we consider what it means to flow out to the world. In many ways, water is only effective if it is moving. We've already seen that when it sits still, it loses its effectiveness. In the laws of fluid dynamics, there's a truth that if you apply a force to a body of water and there's an avenue for it to escape, it will always flow outwards. My oldest son has a penchant for tea. I know, a father tries, but what can I say? Disappointments come in all forms. He loves his tea. He has this goofy teapot that he takes everywhere he goes. He takes it to the office. He takes it to my house, everywhere. And for some reason, he seems incapable of recognizing the idea of capacity. He fills this teapot to the very tip-top rim every single time, which is fine, except that then he tries to put on the lid. And he shoots water all over my counter. I can't tell you how many times I've had to wipe up water on my counter. But that's a picture I'm painting for you. A teapot so full that it's begging to slosh out with the slightest bit of contact. See, this is evangelism. This is living water welled up inside us. Just like Jesus says in John 4. His grace fills us to the point of overflowing, the tip-top brim. Paul talks about this idea in Romans chapter 15 and verse 13. May the God of hope fill you with every joy and peace in your belief to the point of overflowing in hope of the Holy Spirit's power. We're to be like that, overflowing in the power of God's grace and the life revealed to us in the imperial edict, the good news of King Jesus. So if we're living at the point of overflowing in every situation, the tiniest touch is going to spill out of us the living water to the world. A moment of compassion, a moment of love or grace, a certain emotion can cause out of us to flow the living waters of Christ to the world. We've been conditioned to believe that evangelism is something we do to the world. We do it to the world, but it's a natural result. It's a natural result of being overfilled. We're so overfilled that it sloshes out of us. A passion for our King, a passion for His kingdom, a passion for His good news. To unlock this evangelism in our lives, we need to start looking within and asking the really hard question, are we really filled? If we're not really filled, then we're not really going to spill out. What's stopping us from being really filled? Finally, W. The imperial proclamation of King Jesus, the gospel demands that we live out to the world the grace that we have experienced within. We're to live out the words. We're to demonstrate the words. We're to be His words in action. That's how we're to live. There are 3 specific kingdom statements, mission statements that He has given to us. The first is Luke 19:10, for the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. Second, John 3:17, for God did not send His own Son into the world to judge the world, but that the world might be saved through Him. And the third is 1 John 3:8. It was for this reason that the Son of God Himself was revealed. Here it is, that He might destroy, some translations will say sabotage, the works of the devil. This reveals to us 3 objectives that we should emulate. If you will, these are our words, our marching orders. Seek, save, sabotage. First, seek. We have to cultivate a deep level of compassion for the people in this world and their situation. We have to really feel for where they are. We have to legitimately view all people, with care and compassion and feel a hunger, a desire to help them. Secondly, save. Once we've identified the people in their situation, then we must act. It's not enough to feel it. We have to act. The salvation that we know isn't just for us. It's not for us to store up and treasure it. It's not even for us to gather together as a closed society and celebrate. It's for us to actively be sharing in a world that desperately needs it. Sharing what we have is key. We are saved to share our salvation with others. And finally, the third, sabotage or destroy. Ultimately, the imperial edict of King Jesus is a proclamation of war. War on the forces of darkness. And we are to live lives that are constantly thwarting the will of Satan, pushing back the darkness, pushing back his desire and will. How are we undoing Satan's actions in our lives every day? Let's wrap it up this way. Evangelism can be a formal thing. Asking someone to study the Bible, bringing them to church. And those things are beautiful and they're necessary, but it's not limited to that. It is flow. Freely living out the Word, touching lives daily, living the truth of Jesus before all, demonstrating His love. Someone has said that our lives might be the only sermon that someone ever hears. I've heard it said that an ancient church father used to say, share the gospel every day and use words whenever necessary. My old preacher at a former church used to say regularly, each of you is a daily sermon in shoes. The point of all this is that evangelism should be a normal and natural aspect of the love of Jesus Christ flowing out of a splashing, life-giving, living water on all with whom we come in contact. That's our hope. That's our prayer. That's what we want evangelism to be. I hope that we'll really take to heart what it means to be an evangelist, to slosh out of us, to flow out of us the living water of the good news of Jesus Christ. My friends, let's go do that this week. God bless you.